June 25th, 1678. Elena Cornaro Piscopia becomes the first woman awarded a doctorate in philosophy. It remains the only achievement by anyone with a philosophy degree. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And our guest tonight is, I think, one of the most exciting comics in Denver to watch. Please welcome Mr. Ben Bryant.
Hello.
To the show. Ben, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If you're not familiar, every episode we bring on a guest to talk about a topic from history. One of us presents the official account of events, and another person comes up with an alternate history. And the winner becomes true history. If you listened last episode, Valley Forge, then you'll know that the alternate history won out.
And just going to say, I'm not totally sure what happened in the alternate history.
I listened to it a couple times. I know that Tom Hanks was like patient zero for diabetes.
Pretty much.
He was like outbreak monkey.
He was sent back in time to protect George Washington, who he had previously established is two children in a long coat from a Terminator.
Who also harvested body parts from a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I think we got that covered. Well, this week we are discussing one of my very, very favorite figures from history, the Marquis de Lafayette.
Yeah.
So I will be doing
That's Marquis like that title in France.
Yes.
His name's not Marquis.
No, he's not like Marquis Mark.
No.
that would be incredibly stupid if that were the case.
What is a marquis like as a title? What does that mean?
I think it's like Lord or
it's like better than Baron,
yeah,
but weirdly worse than Baronet, which is strange.
The only one I know is Marquis de Sade.
Oh yeah, the sexy one.
Yeah.
I say that skeptically, listeners, in case that didn't come across.
How was there never like an emo band called Marquis de Sade?
Too hard to Google.
That's the dumbest name.
Probably that. You know what? I'm going to go with Brian's explanation for this particular.
We're Marquis de Sade. Again, there's no one in the audience for this show.
I think he was sexy. He invented like a whole new way of fucking.
That's true.
Like eventually his fucking was so good it got outlawed in like Puritan America.
That guy, the guy who invented furries, I think was also a marquis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Marquis de Fur.
Yeah, exactly.
Marquis de Pelt.
Oh, god damn it. I don't think a new way of fucking has been invented since then, either.
I mean, like, we got, like, robot fucking now. We got a lot of
yeah.
toys.
We're on the forefront of a new wave.
In the last 10 years, we've seen a fuck explosion.
It's a really exciting time for fucking technology right now.
We're on the bleeding edge.
Virtual reality porn?
Yeah, the fucking singularity is like... I feel like that's just when two people have sex become one.
Yeah, what the gays are doing, that's new. Last 10 years.
That's completely new, I think. Since Greece and also before that.
Well, I mean, pedestry is different than consent.
Very true. If listeners take nothing else away from this episode, let it be that. Well, I think if we're all ready to begin, I'll start off with the true story.
Sure.
Marie-Joseph Paul-Yves Roche-Gilbert du Motier, Marquis de Lafayette, who was known to most Americans simply as Lafayette, because that's a shitload of names to remember, was born on his family's estate of Chavagnac, and became an officer in the French army at age 13, which...
Wow.
He's like the Doogie Howser
of guns.
Of the French militia. Which is a better show, I think. I would rather watch that.
Yeah, if he was just like a member of the French army instead of a doctor.
Yeah, and it was just like, I don't know, the 7 Years' War was going on.
And it's still Neil Patrick Harris, right?
Sure, he can do anything. Even though he's like a 40-year-old man now.
Well, he was 13, so his duties only included like marching and presenting himself to the king.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like
pedestry.
to bring it back to that. It was more just like a beauty pageant than an actual army, though.
It is a weird way to phrase it, though. Presenting themselves to the king.
That's the way they phrased it, though.
I know, but they shouldn't have.
No, I know.
What was the normal like age of? Was it 18 when you could enter the French army? Was it like 16?
Everybody did things younger back then.
Yeah.
Except for things that we think are immoral, like rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't rock till you're 30 in the French army.
Well, I mean, they also didn't know that there was any African music to steal at that point, to be fair.
Yeah.
When Lafayette was 2, his father was killed by British cannon fighting a battle in Germany as part of the 7 Years' War, which started in America. You know, all these different parts of the world coming together to kill a dude. The melting pot story.
Yeah.
Lafayette was a Freemason, so driven by ideals of, like, equality and freedom, and of course fighting the old gods who controlled the British throne, and fighting robots and, like, order and all that shit.
Those were the main tenets.
The main things. He was at a dinner with his men in 1775. He was discussing the rebellion taking place in North America, and he sort of decided that his heart was with the Americans against the British and their dad stealing cannons.
Yeah. Yeah, not a hard choice for a Frenchman in that time.
Yeah, true. In 1776, at age 18, he demanded to be part of a group of French officers being sent to help the Americans. But when the British found out about this, they were like, well, we'll go to war with you if you do that. So that kind of got scuttled. So Lafayette ended up going underground, and he wrote a letter to his father-in-law, who's also his commander, telling him he was going to America to fight. And his father-in-law went directly to King Louis to have him issue a decree specifically forbidding Lafayette from going to America, which is a great parental thing.
What a fucking snitch.
I know.
What a fucking punk bitch. Just, wow. Gotta go to the goddamn king. Like, be a better parent, man.
You can even step up to the streets and handle it. Like,
I think some of the blame lies with Louis, too, who could have been a cool king, but had to be a dick about it. This is why you get your head chopped off, Louis. Decisions like this, where cool dudes just want to spend the day off at a parade in Chicago, and you spend the whole day chasing after them.
I don't know that. Are you implying that the principal got his head cut off at the end of Ferris Bueller?
Yeah, I mean, I did fall asleep about 3/4 of the way through that movie.
You always fall asleep for the ending, in fact.
Even like reading the synopsis on Wikipedia, you just fall asleep during the last quarter.
Which I do, of course, every week. Read a synopsis of Ferris Bueller's Day Off on Wikipedia.
Maybe I'll get through it this time. Maybe I can make it.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off, subtitle, Ed Rooney's head off.
Was that the actor or the character?
Character?
For a movie you fall asleep halfway through each time. You remember it remarkably well.
Well, there's also
he remembers less and less every time he watches it.
That's one where they go to that park and it's all Jurassic, right? He bought a ship with his own money. He almost abandoned his plan because of his wife's emotional reaction to his leaving. But he decided to go ahead and take the boring 2-month ocean journey to America.
Yeah, as opposed to her chemical reaction to his leaving, or...
Yes, thank you. Really, emotional reactions are just chemical reactions.
That's true.
You meat bags. Mm-hmm. Lafayette was one of quite a few French officers to make it to Philadelphia to pledge themselves to the Americans. But crucially, he was one of the only ones who had experience and spoke any English. And he also offered his services without pay. So they immediately appointed him to be a major general.
Nice.
Which is also an internship, really, since he's doing it without pay.
That's true. That's a good internship, though.
Yeah, I guess. Where you can get shot a bunch.
Yeah, but you get to be a major general. If you win, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you lose, that's not so good.
If a major general goes down, that means fucking a shitload of people have died before you. You're damn close to last in line to die.
Yeah, that's true. You actually have a bunch of Connecticut soldiers lined up before you. So
we've all played Risk.
Oh God. Lafayette became friends with George Washington basically right away, because they're both Masons, like probably have some sort of secret underwear thing. Lafayette adored Washington.
And he remembered being a child presenting himself to a king. And George Washington, of course, 2 children in a long coat. 2
children in a long coat.
Yeah.
They had so much in common. One was a child and one was 2 children.
Yeah.
Lafayette adored Washington, and Washington told Lafayette to view him as a father.
That's a little presumptuous.
Well, I mean, he's George Washington.
Hey, Brian, you can view me as a father if you want.
I mean, I do have... Again, my father has not been killed by British cannon, unless that becomes part of the alternate history.
Was Was this like metaphorically, or he literally was like, "Yeah, I'm your fucking dad now."
That's a different tone, though.
Me and your mom have been talking. I'm your fucking dad.
Yeah, it'd be weird if he was just like, "Hey, Lafayette, I just fucked your mom." Who's your dad now?
There is a difference between who's your fucking daddy and you can view me as a father figure. I think
it was more the latter.
I'm not the best at intonations.
I think like giving. Like, I don't think you need to give permission to be a father figure. I think you just need to be loving. I think to actually be somebody's father, you got to approach and be like, "Hey, I'm your fucking dad now. This is how the rules of this house that's now ours."
You really have to be a real pushover to be like, "Well, okay, I guess you're my dad now." Call your real dad, be like, "Sorry, this guy just wants it more."
Well, his dad was dead.
That should be, I think, we just had Father's Day. I think it would be a much more interesting holiday if it were a competition to see who got to be whose dad.
Who is Father Prime?
No, I feel like that'd be an awful Sadie Hawkins thing at the end of the day, though.
Ooh.
Where there's just a bunch of fathers who no one wants.
Yeah. It's like, I call that kid who is going to play Spider-Man. He's probably going to make a shit ton of money.
It's like The Purge, just everyone's a different dad for
Everyone
a day.
wants to be Beyonce's dad, and no one else has a father.
It's musical chairs with fathers. Where the chair is a child.
That could help a lot of people in low-income situations.
Yeah, this is really a kind of a communist solution to economic inequalities.
Do you understand communism? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
it's
very...
not just like collectivizing
Yeah,
fathers.
it's about the redistribution of fathers.
No, because you can just seize a dad. It's not like they're being doled out. You just... Dads are thrust upon you. It's like... It's very utilitarian. Authoritarian, excuse me. Not utilitarian. Authoritarian.
Anyway, Lafayette gets shot in the leg at the Battle of Brandywine, but he still manages...
Wow. I mean, I'm just thinking because Benedict Arnold also, one of his favorite pastimes, being shot in the
Getting
leg.
shot in the leg.
He did it 3 times.
Yeah.
Particularly the left leg. It's just so popular back then to just like everybody who was a cool kid was like, I got shot in the leg.
It was
I got
the
shot in the leg
planking
before
of
it was
the Revolutionary War. Does that still happen?
cool. I don't think so.
Okay, damn
It
it.
was like that guard in Skyrim, speaking of outdated references.
We have a lot to get through with Lafayette, so I'm just going to kind of start listing shit he did. Mm-hmm. He shot in the leg at Brandywine, but manages to organize an orderly retreat. He recruited the Oneida tribe to the American cause. Oneida. Apologies.
Plus, there was that one assassin who was in the Oneida sex cult, and they're probably more offended by that.
Yeah, that's true. He helped save the Battle of Monmouth, returned to France to recruit more troops, tried to capture Benedict Arnold, forced Cornwallis into a trap at Yorktown, and helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris. That's like a lot of shit.
Yeah,
basically.
and you may remember he was present for the topic of last week's episode, Valley Forge.
Yes, indeed. There was actually one anecdote from like when I was reading about him and Washington becoming friends, where Washington was like showing him his troops, and then Washington was like kind of embarrassed because his troops were so bedraggled. And then Lafayette was like, "Oh, I'm just here to learn, not to teach." And then I think that they made out or something. I don't know. It was just like kind of sort of cute, which is weird because
That was their meet cute, in fact.
exactly, because one of them had a mouthful of slave teeth, so it was weird. So after the war, he goes back to France and he joins an abolitionist group called the Society of the Friends of the Blacks.
It's a little wordy.
A little wordy.
You could cut out either probably the Society of.
Yeah. I don't know that they actually had any black friends though, so I don't know if they just named themselves Friends of the Blacks.
They just said they did.
Yeah.
FOB.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So they were separating themselves from people who were actually friends with blacks by being the society for the friends.
Exactly.
Of,
We
have friends who have friends.
That's
We've
how
come a
I...
long way.
emancipation.
Now people who are racist just say they have black friends. It used to be I have friends who have friends.
That's how I've made the majority of my...
United States under the Republican ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
I've made a lot of black friends that way. It's just by being like, hey man, check out my shirt. And it's a wordy thing that says like, I'm friends with black people.
Yes.
I feel like that's just one of those things where it's like,
everybody.
I've just made a black friend, and they're just like,
Yeah,
this
he
guy
was
just took a
charmed.
picture with me. I don't know what's happening.
He was charmed by my convoluted shirt.
He became an outspoken advocate for emancipation, even writing several letters urging his adopted father figure, George Washington, to free his slaves, which, as we've established, he did not.
Would not be
Until
a
he
true
died.
father figure if there weren't something at every dinner that was an uncomfortable political topic.
In this case, slavery,
Yeah.
which is...
Yeah, you know how you think your dad's racist? Well, fucking just wait, man.
Yeah, when your dad is George Washington. That's Lafayette in the American Revolution. But he also played a huge part in the French Revolution. And again, this is another part where I'm just kind of going to have to list accomplishments just to get through this. Because after his return to France, he was a part of the National Assembly. He wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Man, was made Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard, and tried to guide like a moderate reformist course through the revolution. At one point, he protected Marie Antoinette from an angry mob that he had just been marching to Versailles with.
Mm-hmm. He tried to get her to safety in the chaos following the revolution, though unfortunately did not succeed.
Yes,
though I am
totally.
aware that, along with George Washington, one of his children was named after Marie Antoinette.
Mm-hmm. That is true. They were Marie Antoinette Lafayette and George Washington Lafayette. So,
Pretty direct.
he disarmed counter-revolutionary nobles and then was turned on by the radicals and fled to Austria, where he was imprisoned for 5 years as an anti-monarchist. His wife, Adrienne, was imprisoned in France at the same time. After Napoleon took power, he was able to return to France, and he served as a member of the liberal opposition to the string of French despots for the next 30 years. During the 1830 revolution, which I did not realize was not the Les Mis one, he was offered the chance to become the dictator of France, but rejected it because he felt it was unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, he returned to the United States for the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and he took a tour of all 24 states. He was viewed as like this figure from a different time because he really did bridge the era between like this chivalric feudal past and the sort of the new present of like nation states and citizenship and all that shit. I don't know why I said it like that. I apologize.
Fucking shit.
All that fucking bullshit about
I-
constitutions and inalienable rights.
Fucking
I heard
queer.
a really charming story about him. During his tour of the United States, didn't he see in a crowd a fellow, a black man,
James
who was
Armistead Lafayette.
his like aide de camp or something at the time when he was fighting in the American Revolution,
And I
stopped his convoy, got out of his carriage, and like ran through the crowd to greet him.
yeah, and they hugged for like 5. So much of his life is like fucking from a romantic comedy.
Yeah,
That is true. I feel like I want to make James Armistead Lafayette a topic of a future episode, so I don't want to get too much into that.
Okay.
But yeah, totally just like had a very long public hug with a former slave who was his
Proving
best friend in America.
that he was not just part of the Society for Friends of Black People. He was
Exactly.
legitimately a friend of black people.
Fade to credits.
And he got a patch of soil from Bunker Hill to take home to be sprinkled over his grave when he died. And he returned to France. His nickname was the Hero of Two Worlds. Just lived out the rest of his life in peace until he died.
Yeah, that
Spoiler
tends to
alert.
happen.
And that is the official account of the story of the Marquis de Lafayette.
Truncated, there is a lot more to the man.
There is so much more, but it's so hard to give all of that and keep it under time. But Ben, you'll be doing the alternate version.
Okay. What's his fucking name again? Yeah, so Marquis de Lafayette, Colorado was... that's what I thought this was going to be, because there's a town in Colorado called Lafayette. It's just about this... Like all the racists that founded Stapleton, all the Klan members. It turns out he's French. All right, Marquis de Lafayette was born in France anywhere between the 13th and 17th century. No one can nail it.
Circa that.
His father was killed at the age of 2 by bandits, and they blamed it on the British, which of course put like a deep Batman-like rage in him for quite a while.
Oh, so basically Joe Chill killed his father.
I guess.
Yeah, but he was British. His name was Joe Chill. And he, not unlike Robin, went to join the circus to gain the powers necessary to fight.
Both Batman and Robin.
Yeah. He's the hero of 2 worlds.
That's both DC.
And both Gotham.
He learned, various circus tricks and like animal taming and stuff, and he was deemed too powerful by the French government. And they're like, all right, we got to get this guy under control. And so they did, and they made him join the French army. And back then, wars weren't so much fought with strategy or weapons, but a series of acrobatic bullshit because French.
Of course. It was the Cirque du Soleil style of combat.
Yeah, so motherfucker, it's the fucking play and movie that Beat It was based on. It's the sharks and the...
West Side Story.
Yeah, it was West Side Story. It's how all French fights went.
Wait, Beat It was based on...
I think. I don't know. There's definitely a very West Side Story vibe to the music video, at least.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know about the song itself. Anyway, so Marquis de Lafayette.
It is the forefather of all dance movies. I heard that West Side Story once approached Beat It and said, "You can think of me as your father."
Yeah, so he just carried on like that for a while, and he had a knack for it, and he read like a lot of back then there weren't like Tumblr blogs or like annoying Facebook posts. You had to just walk around the city streets and people would come up to you with Tumblr posts and Facebook posts, and
they'd written out on lengths of pelt.
Yeah.
And which was very wasteful.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had to kill an animal every time you wanted to make a Facebook post.
That is why the buffalo went extinct.
Every time I make a Facebook post, I throw a hamster into a ceiling fan.
Do you know how many buffalo pelts were used to write hashtag not my Ghostbusters on? Millions.
But being young and radical and artsy, he soon acquired the most contrarian opinion you could have at the time, and he began really supporting the American Revolution, which led to him developing kind of like a... You know how people are like real into Zayn from One Direction? It's kind of like that, but for George Washington. And so he started following George Washington around all of his concerts and wars and stuff. And eventually Washington was like, fuck, dude. Gee, all right, fine. Come on, let's start a war.
So prior to this, the battles he was having were not for a war. They were just for amusement.
Yeah, it was for media play and for to show the other 4 members of...
it was for exposure.
Yeah. So Washington was originally in a boy band with Franklin, Jefferson, Hancock, and if I knew just one more, I'd be less ignorant. And Ringo. And
I was hoping you'd throw in Button Gwinnett.
Button Gwinnett was the Ringo Starr of the Founding Fathers.
He really was.
So Washington wanted to prove he was like the Zayn or like the Justin Timberlake of the Founding Fathers. So he just went off and started a ruckus, and Marquis de Lafayette was right there with him.
The revolutionary ruckus.
Real super quick aside related to nothing. Just like the words like ruckus and like kerfuffle is my favorite version of that. And when the Smash Bros. Series came out, it was just Smash Bros. Smash Bros. Melee, Smash Bros. Brawl, and it's just Smash Bros. 4 right now. But for a while before it got announced, people on the internet were calling it kerfuffle. And I thought that was just the best fucking possible
like more polite than Brawl or Melee.
It is, yeah. It's a real de-escalation.
Super Smash Brothers dust up. Super Smash Brothers YouTube comment section.
Super Smash Bros. World Star. Just fucking Peach with a tit hanging out. It's just, you fucking bitch.
Beating up on Link.
Yeah, Marquis and Washington were buds for like a good... They were for a while. They formed like almost a pedestry sort of relationship.
Define almost.
Well, it was all fucking no learning. He went on like that for a while. And Marquis de Lafayette was the first person to say, hey, maybe we should fight this war with ships and stuff. He actually... Marquis de Lafayette got like high a lot. He got fucking really high off paint thinner, which had just recently been invented. And him and Washington were sailing around just butt fucking. And he saw a dolphin in the seas. He saw a dolphin in the British seas. And he was like, do you think dolphins like tea? Washington was like, let's fucking pour some in there and find out. And that's how we got the Boston Tea Party.
Okay. So I assume they were high on paint thinner when they had this do dolphins like tea conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so it went on like that for a while. And eventually, you know, they had the whole American Revolution. That went pretty okay. For the most part. That was another thing is, you know, Lafayette was so, he was walking around the whole time just pissed at the British. Like if he saw anyone British, he'd shove them, make fun of them, flick their titty. And
which is how wars were fought at the time.
Yeah, it would be him in a group. They would just approach old women snapping. And they'd dance and
play a series of
and comb their hair threateningly.
Summer camp-esque pranks on each other.
There are rumors that Marquis de Lafayette was, in fact, Jack the Ripper, but with dance battles.
Where you would just have dance battles that left several prostitutes dead. You know, dancing.
But, so one day Washington was like, you can consider me a father figure. And I was like, this completely changes our sexual dynamic. I don't know. So they went on for like a couple more months, and then they split. And then Lafayette determined to prove that he was his own thing. He's like, all right. Well, what if we did like a revolution here in France? And I'm not really telling an alternate version of what you told. I'm telling a much dumber version.
Well, it's a differently colored version.
Yeah. It's the true Hollywood story.
It does involve drugs and sex, so yeah, it kind of is. I might just cut in weird narration for this episode.
And yeah, I mean, so he you know, Lafayette had already, it was pretty well established in both the American and the French, you know. So it was easy for him to work his way up. His ultimate goal was to fuck Marie Antoinette in the ass. Everyone called her cake ass back then because she had a fucking ass like a fruitcake.
Because they are French.
So you know, if you knew him back then like I did, you know, he was a rascal. He was always making dirty puns. So he'd be like, "Hey Marie, you want to maybe let me eat cake?" They'd all high five back then, and Marquis de Lafayette invented the high five.
Okay, I was going to ask when that came about as a thing. Inventor of the high five.
Long list of accomplishments.
Yeah, so he'd facilitated most of the French Revolution, wrote some plays, smoked some paint thinner.
Wait, smoked? Is that how you do paint thinner?
Nah, you huff it.
Okay. Because I imagine if you smoke it, it'd be...
He smoked it. Most people huff it.
Okay.
He was an impressive guy.
He's a pioneer of ways to get high. He invented whippets, which before then were just whips.
You know, he spent his time between, you know, the U.S. and France, just kind of going back and forth, and then he eventually made his way to Britain, and that was where he wanted to have it out with the British monarchy one more time, and he got in a shootout with some guards, but his loyal assistant V put him on a subway, and then blew up him and a bunch of towers, and now everyone wears the mask in remembrance of Marquis de Lafayette.
So wait, does that make him Natalie Portman or Hugo Weaving?
Yeah.
Hugo Weaving. He had a... I
Weaving.
couldn't remember Natalie Portman's name.
Tarzan. Sorry.
I couldn't remember the fucking name of the character of Natalie, but yeah, he...
I don't think anyone can.
It's Evie or Eve.
Whatever.
Okay. Close.
Yeah.
That's also a Pokemon. That's what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was put to rest by Vaporeon, and...
Of course.
Blew
The
up
most
a bunch.
dignified of the Eevee evolutions. That's a... Ben, thank you.
Yeah.
Zach, you're judging for this episode.
Okay. This is actually kind of rough. So, I like the concept of Marquis de Lafayette as a drug-addicted, sex maniac proto-Batman.
We covered a lot of ground.
But my honest main concern is that we've covered too much ground. And that when we do future episodes about the French Revolution or even the remainder of our American Revolution episodes, even an episode about, like, the gunpowder plot, that we will be so indentured and impossible, like, it will be impossible to pull those threads away from, like, the monster version of Marquis de Lafayette because he's so prominent in various parts of history. I'm really scared about what the alternate history could mean for just the logistics.
I still just like the idea of the alternate version of the Boston Tea Party being like, the
Being
dolphins
high
like
and
tea.
throwing- Yeah, so
That's
it's
like
tough.
That's like the accidentally shooting your friend of the 18th century.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely enjoy a lot of the details. I'm just terrified. I'm terrified of having to work them into future episodes. And I do have a lot of respect for real life Marquis de Lafayette. That does factor into it. So I think I'm going to have to let that story exist as its own beautiful thing that is in this podcast. Just so when we talk about Marquis de Lafayette in future, when he comes up in future episodes, we can like have something resembling a normal conversation instead of like we're talking about Marie Antoinette and this guy comes out of an alleyway smelling of paint fumes. And just tells her to smoke this, and who knows what happens after that. So, just for my own logistic sanity on future episodes, I have to stick with the real story.
But
it was a joyful story to hear.
Well, thank you, Zach. Listeners, before we go, you can always leave us a comment or ask us a question at revisionistpodcast.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter and write a review of this podcast on iTunes if you're so inclined, because that's very, very helpful. Mm-hmm. Also, while you're on your computer box, today we got a write-up in Westward from friend of the show, Byron Graham.
Yeah.
So check that out. It was very, very kind. Before we go, we're always around. Zach, you do Stage of Fools.
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Ben, you're brilliant. And
You're brilliant.
You're brilliant.
Fuck you.
Turnabout. Turnabout is fair play. Also, listeners, you can catch me July 6th at Comedy Works New Faces Contest, where I'll be competing against former guests, Janae and Byron.
And me.
And you. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
God damn it. So, come check that out at the Downtown Comedy Works, July 6th at 8 p.m. And I think that does it for this episode.
Yeah.
Which has been
accomplished a lot.
A trip. And amazing.
Yeah, I really thought that conversation about switching dads was going to be the weirdest part of the show about 20 minutes ago.
Really? It's the most sensible idea I think that happened in the last 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. Ben, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Zach, thank you as always.
Yeah.
For everyone here at The Revisionist, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a good night or day.
Bye.
Podcasts.
Bye.